Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McKusick, and we got a concerns episode for you today. We're looking at the Ravens' inability to get takeaways, or at least the requisite number. Joining me to talk about that is Dolph. You know him from X fame as, let me make sure of this now. You are ZZ Godspeed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All
That's my
right.
handle on Twitter.
All right, happy to have you on to discuss this. It's your topic. Talk about what you think the problem really stems from.
Sure. From the top of the tree of issues, I really believe that it comes down to your mentality, the DB's mentality, the ability to trust your instincts. I really believe it's between the ears a lot of times. All of these guys are long, for the most part, that play on a boundary that these issues come up with. They're all pretty long and all run sub 4.5s and can bump and run if you need to bail out and play some type of zone. Uh, Usually you don't have those issues when they're coming forward. So I think it's obviously something I trust myself to go forward. But when I'm not, when I can't see the ball, that's when it's just seems like they start to panic a lot of times. And surely, Ravens fans understand that. So
So last year, Brandon Stevens, perfect example, a guy who has had a long-term problem of finding the ball in the air. He'll be gone on the other side of the field, and a guy who may or may not really see the field much this year, TJ Tampa, has some speed issues, which can cause him, I believe, to not be able to find the ball because he just doesn't trust his makeup speed enough to be able to turn back while in phase with a receiver.
yeah, and that's a part of being able to uh, know your strengths and weaknesses. I guess a lot of times when you're in that trail technique, when you're initially beat, again, people, the good ones, they know what to do. They know how to you know eye in on the wide receiver's hips. That's the center of gravity. That's where they're going. So, um, and we were just discussing this before the show, Ken. Like I said, it's a point of understanding the receiver. What are they running? If they're running a vertical route, then at this point, we're in this recovery mode. We have to keep an eye on the head. If the head starts to turn back, I guess the best receivers they have, what they call late hands. So, if you're focusing on
Mhm.
that head turning back, and then maybe when you start seeing that gesture for maybe a basket catch or over the top, they have to readjust and come back to it. You can turn at that point. You can trust that if you're within like a 1 or 2 yard radius, like if you trust yourself enough, you're in that radius to may have to overextend, but like I said, the best ones they understand how to turn a weakness into a strength at the catch point, and
You know,
that's
you're making a real good point there about how do you know what that receiver is doing. A lot of the really good cornerbacks, they keep their hand on the receiver when they're in
mhm.
phase. Now you can't always do that because you may get outrun, but if you keep your hand on the corner, they're giving you all kinds of tactile clues on what route they'll be going. And Marlon Humphrey or other cornerbacks know how to translate that into what they need to do with their own feet while they can peek into the backfield at that time. So it's a mechanism to turn your head away from that receiver. But the other thing you mentioned was that looking at the opponent's hips. It is a really good tell. I've had offensive linemen on the show who've talked about looking at the top of the right hand number of your opponent because you can't get head faked by that number.
Right, yeah.
You can but you can get faked out a little bit by the head of a receiver certainly.
Yeah, and I learned honestly that I learned in basketball. Like growing up, my
Mhm.
brother used to tell me like put your when you're putting your hand out to keep that dribble from going across his body. You also want to target that at the hip. And I mean more. And what I mean when I talk about focus on that midsection, I mean at that point maybe you've caught back up, but you're obviously still stacked as far as the wide receiver. His
Mhm.
wide receiver is comfortable in his leverage at that point. He's already trying to understand how many steps he needs to gather and make a play. These aren't the ones the balls where like he's still running under it. These are the ones where it's most likely going to be a play where it's going to be contact in the air a little bit. It's going to be a situation where we're both in some. I feel like in a Raven situation times sometimes we don't see the actual uh transition of this play because a lot of times our DBs are just they don't understand whether or not it's coming, not because they're looking at the receiver, they're playing through the receiver. And I wonder, I really wonder if that's a coaching or teaching point that we're just going to do that. And if we do that, then like I said, I feel like if we're going to do that, then we have to be students of the hands and the eyes. We have to be tuned in on what the receiver is doing at that point when we're in position. Like if we're truly trailing a receiver, then yeah, I would just hope that you can just stay on his hip, catch up. But if you have an opportunity where you've already like hip to hip with a guy, that's when you can use your spatial awareness to trust that at this point the ball is coming. It's everyone knows in the stadium. You hear the sound of the crowd, like it's coming at this point. While we still have our head to the ball, it's maddening.
Okay. All right. A lot to unpack there, but I do want to
Yeah,
go over some of that again. So you're talking about the difference between being stacked and times when the defensive back, the cornerback, usually on the outside, is the ones we're talking about. We do want to kind of go through all the Ravens
yeah.
corners and safeties, but where he has some leverage on the inside, he's not completely stacked, so he has some freedom of movement. Because as soon as you're stacked, I mean, the first thing you need to try and do is figure out how you might get unstacked or how you can make the best out of a very bad situation in terms of making that tackle if the catch is made over top of you. But
Exactly.
there's not a whole lot of options what you. But if you have a little bit of inside leverage, say, then finding the ball in the air is very valuable potentially. You can avoid some of the bad things that happen when the ball is thrown and hopefully either knock the ball away or even intercept it. And the Ravens' lack of turnovers on the outside in particular has been very bad. Even Humphrey, we'll talk about. Um, he's been more of a catch point guy, more of a not look in the backfield. And that part of his game has really improved the last couple of years where he's been able to come off of opposing receivers, even of his own receiver, to make an interception occasionally.
I am reminded of the time he RG3 and Marlon had a episode. I'm not sure if it was on Marlins or I think it was on Marlins maybe. And at the end of the show, RG3 basically let him know like, hey, you're kind of that's where you struggle at, and Marlon accepted that. And the way he came out this year and located the ball, it was just a breath of fresh air. Like
Mm-hmm.
so much, just like Stevens, these guys are magnets to the receiver. They never truly beat. A lot of times we look at the Ravens receivers, they're running under balls, still have a lot of green in front of them. We don't really see that from our DBs. It's more in big situations, making big time plays. And he came down on Chase, that Chase Barrow connection at the week 4 game, I believe. That was just you can't teach that. He just said, I want the ball more than you, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he did. I would love to see, with Nate Wiggins take that jump as well, because he's going to be targeted a lot. I believe he's going to get his opportunities to affect the ball, not just like play the receiver really well, but make game changing plays.
Oh yeah. Do you feel like Wiggins has a problem finding the ball?
I am I'm kind of underwhelmed by his ball skills at the moment. I am.
But is the problem more that he hasn't caught the balls that he's been there for, or that he hasn't gotten to enough balls?
I think it's a combination of both. He's definitely had I think we've seen videos from training camp where it's still a issue a little bit locating the ball. You have to locate it before you can attack it, right? So that's what I want to see. The same guys from the Maryland game today, like I mentioned, the guy Scruggs, he had a play early in the game where he did locate the ball, and I tweeted about it. I said that was great. You played the receiver as much as you could without DPI, and then at this point he read his eyes and turned back. If you do that, I will live with that. I will live with the ball falling to the ground because at that point you don't leave the referee at the mercy. That's the huge point here. Like you can play aggressive, but if you don't turn your head, you're leaving the referee to call a flag, and
Yeah.
most times they calling it.
Yeah, I agree. If you go through the guy's body and you haven't turned your head to find the ball, they do. If you're in front of the receiver or to the side of the receiver and you make a play on the ball, they shouldn't. We still had that ticky tack call in
Yeah,
preseason on I think it was Tampa, right? Got the DPI. I thought
yeah,
it was a real. It looked like a legitimate play on the football. He's got as much right. He saw the ball in that particular case, whereas most of camp, most of the preseason, he was just getting lucky with the ball hitting him in the back three times. In fact, all three of his PDs were
bro.
like that. Um, So you can't look at that and really draw any positive conclusion from it, I don't think. But you make some great points, Dolphin. These are great. But how about we go over the individual players and maybe
Sure.
give me a scale like a 1 to 5 or 0 to 5. Then we know which is good and which is bad. 0 to 5 of each player in terms of their ability to find and impact the ball somehow, whether that means a PD or an interception. So we'll start with Humphrey.
I'm going to give him a solid 4.
Yeah, I'd be the same place. Okay, I think he's sometimes he's better on somebody else's ball. I think a lot of other fans of other teams would probably give him a 5, but anyway, I'm with you. I think he's just really transitioning at this point
Yes.
into that, and
Yes, that's the main part. It's I don't know. You said 2 years early. I don't. I feel like it. I feel like it was last year.
That's his first big interception year. That's for certain.
Yeah, exactly.
And it hasn't been that long. What was it, 22 maybe or 23? Whatever that was the year he had the really big forced fumble year.
Forced fumbles.
Yeah, and that was all at the catch point, which is, by the way, they're both very useful, but a lot of forced fumbles you end up going out of bounds or recovered by the offense, and particularly in his case. But one thing I know about interceptions is that ball always changes hands.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that, Ken? I'm sure you remember this, but for a long time, none of our interceptions went for positive yards last year. They were all like 1 yard gains. Like we caught it and fell down. It was weird like
Okay.
that. We didn't get a lot of yards on the return either. So that's ticky tack. But
there's a problem. I mean, they got a big pick six at the end of the year from Wiggins, but I'd say that
and Humphrey.
in general, your safeties get a lot of yards after the interception. How many interceptions do we have out of safety last year? It wasn't many before they changed.
I think Kyle had 2, and maybe Darius had a couple, maybe.
But the guys for the first 10 weeks, Williams and Jackson didn't do very much. Yeah. So,
I was really wanting Marcus Williams to do well here, but didn't happen.
Yeah, it was a shame because a tremendous fall off the table, just unexpected decline very early in his football career, and it just might have been him not seeing eye to eye with Orr from the look of it is, and right now the way Orr has built this defense, I completely back him on all of this. They did get new defensive back coaches. Do you think that'll help this year? D'Alessio and Pagano coming here.
I do believe that. I think the preseason showed it a little bit. If the first level, second level, and third level are disconnected with the third and fourth strings, I have to imagine that they are following the lead of the leaders of the team, which are all pro talents like Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith and Matabike and obviously Marlon Humphrey and the emergence of Nate Wiggins. So I'm very encouraged about this defense as a whole.
All right. Well, me too. Let's continue going through the individual players. And how about Wiggins on a scale of 1 to 5? Sorry, 0 to 5. Yeah.
I'm gonna give him a 3 for right now. I like the way that he does have an instinct to get the ball. When he sees it, he wants it. I think it's like I said, it's just about locating more often. And once he does that, I think he'll catch the ball more because he dropped a few.
He certainly dropped a few. I'm going to give him a 4 for impacting the ball because I think he finds it very well. I don't think he's obviously doesn't have a great record of catching it so far.
Right.
But that's the first thing is just he trusts his makeup speed. So a lot of times he might be the only guy or the best guy, let's put it that way, on the team for being a little bit behind and being able to catch up. I don't think there's any doubt about that, honestly, with his speed, but also being able to find the ball in the air even when he's trailing or stacked. He's pretty good. So trailing on a cross, stacked on a outright. I know you know that, Dolph. I'm just trying to explain what I mean to folks who are on air here, who are listening here.
Yeah, I think the vertical routes are probably ones that carry him down the field. Those are the ones that I want to see him impact more.
Mm-hmm. Any problem with him coming forward on the ball, or you basically carved that out in your initial comments? You didn't really. You think everybody's pretty well okay coming forward on the ball?
Coming forward, I think even Ruben Lowry. I mean, maybe we'll get to him, but I mean,
Mhm.
Keon. He just showed it 2 weeks ago or last week. So yeah, we're good going forward. Just gotta trust the balance. I think Jamar Chase is like gives me nightmares. Like I just think he's him and T Higgins just breaks my heart every year on these boundary throws and things like that. So
All right. All right. Well, so let's keep going. So we'll talk about Alexander being next, and obviously he's a big new addition. We hope he's on the field some at least. How do you rate him 0 to 5?
pedigree, I'm giving Jay Alexander a 5.
Wow.
He's
Okay.
he Jay Alexander, if healthy, I think he can impact a side of the field. And we don't move our cornerbacks too often, right? We keep them
That's
where they
right.
are.
Hmm.
That's why a part of me believes if he's healthy, then he's either going to get a lot of picks or Nate Wiggins is going to get targeted. Because I don't think the boundary stuff. If he's healthy for the Bengals weeks, and I said this last year when I said this when we got Cal Hamilton, I thought it would slow him down. It hasn't, but I'm hoping I'm right this time. But I really believe that he's the best we've had since Marcus Peters
Okay.
as far as
Wow.
affecting the ball, as far as understanding route concepts, jump take, just like Keon Martin did. That wasn't his ball in the flat last week.
Hmm.
He understood that would be there, and he got off his man. And Harbaugh mentioned that, which I love.
Hmm.
So he has a longer track record, and it's like Marlon did it last year. He has a longer track record of locating the ball. So I'm giving him a 5. What do you
Okay.
think, Ken?
Um, I have seen him undercut a number of balls impressively in their Lamar Jackson throws, generally speaking, in camp. Got him a couple times on the, let's see, the offensive right sideline. I always have to be careful about the offensive defensive perspective, but on the offensive right sideline, he's looked good there. A 4 or a 5. I'm obviously the injury concern is there, and I have probably with Alexander, I have a mild speed concern at this point in his career
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how much he's lost with all the various injuries he's been through. So hopefully he'll not be down much. Let's keep going. One I wanted to talk about, even though he's not on the team anymore, is JAD because he looked like a completely different player this preseason in terms of being able to find the ball in the air. 0 to 5 for him, just what you saw maybe before last year and in preseason.
Yeah, he's like a lot like Brandon Stevens, where they're always in phase. I think they're really good at that. Playing the ball, I'll give him a 3. It's he's been out of commission for a long time. That diving attempt at an interception in the first game, I believe that was against the Colts where he dropped it. Those plays are because he knew he had the ability to locate it. It was a crossing route. It was going to take a few seconds to get there, so he located it. He had a couple pass breakups the next week, I believe.
Mhm.
So yeah, he located the ball pretty well. He just has to, I'm rooting for him. I think he could be. He's long. Just get your eyes on the ball. So I think if he does that, he could probably improve himself. But I'll give him a 3 just because he hasn't really been able to put too much on film.
Okay, I think that's fair. I'd probably go a 3 now as well, but based on what we know, which is a shame because I
It
think
is.
losing a cornerback like him, who would have been the fifth cornerback on a team that has a lot of potential injury, everybody has a lot of potential injury at corner, but the Ravens in particular have a bunch of guys who've been hurt a lot before, and it would be nice to have a corner you could really trust at that 5 spot. Um, I, I'm I just would have much rather have JAD on the roster than say Ali, but that would have been 26-24, and it would have been tough. All right, let's move on to the next player. How about TJ Tampa?
We'll give him a 3 as well. Um, he hasn't. And to your point, you say he just had a pretty bad few reps in training camp. He's been more. He reminds me more of someone that's like grabby at the catch point.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't shown the ability to show his spatial awareness and be able to read eyes in the helmet. So yeah, he's actually very good in coverage. It seems like all of our DBs are fine throughout the route, and then they don't turn their head, and I think that's maybe even a 2, maybe even a
Mm-hmm.
2. I
Okay,
would
I was
say.
going to say I'd put him either at a 1 or a 2, probably a 2. But I think that more than any other defensive back the Ravens have, he does not have good makeup speed, and he lets it impact him as a corner, where he gets behind, and then he just has to try like hell to catch up. Then it becomes a penalty.
You ever have one of those days where everything's off? Well, Mood can help with that. And let me tell you about Mood. It's the online cannabis brand that is changing the way we handle everything, from stress to sleepless nights, with functional gummies that are 100% federally legal cannabis. Mood launched to make cannabis affordable, accessible, and transparent, while at the same time supporting American farmers growing premium hemp on small pesticide-free farms. Their gummies are next level. Seriously, I've tried a few, and each one feels totally different. The Sleepy Time gummies, out like a light, immediately asleep. The Epic Euphoria, it's perfect when you just need a reset to feel good again. What makes them unique? Mood combines THC with herbs and adaptogens, so you get real targeted effects. You're not going to find this in your typical dispensary. And here's the best part. Mood ships discreetly to most states, offers a 100-day satisfaction guarantee, and right now you get 20% off your first order with the promo code RAVEN. Just head to mood.com. Find your perfect gummy and use the code RAVENS at checkout to save 20%.
Risk. It becomes a not really impacting the ball at the catch point even. There's lots of problems with that. And I, I'm afraid he may have to move to safety. Not that would be a terrible thing. He might really help the Ravens there, but I'm afraid that probably is in his future. In the 4.5s, there's a big drop off. Every 0.01 seconds of your 40 time matters. In terms of how you translate that on the field into really effective game speed. And at 4.59, it was a little bit of a risk drafting him. I did love him. He's my number 6 overall cornerback in that draft. So I'm as guilty as EDC on this one, but it was a little bit of a risk taking a 4.59 corner.
I think Harbaugh had a comment about, why is he playing more cornerback than safety? I think he said something along the lines of like, he just hasn't had a chance to play corner. I think, if you feel like you want to give him those reps because he started, he didn't get to play much last year, that's fine. He got his chance this summer, but like you said, maybe going forward, they make the transition, whether it's this season or in the off season. I'm saying, I feel like they do need some safety help.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
It honestly, they need some corner help for next year too. I mean, JET's now gone, so he's not a concern. But Awuzie will be gone. Alexander will be gone, and if they're back, it won't be for good reasons. It'll be because something bad happened this year that made them not as marketable a commodity. Like they got hurt again. Humphrey, they're going to have to make a large financial commitment to keep him around, or they may have to cut him before next year just to save cap money. So they've got a lot of things they've got to take care of. And Wiggins is the one great young cornerback they have. And after that, Keon Martin is their next good young quarterback, maybe. And Tampa may have to move. And the guy I'm really concerned about losing off the practice squad right now is Marquise Robinson, because I thought he looked great. He looked great in the preseason. I'd really like to make sure he's around in 26.
Yeah, with Kone and Longer Beam going down, I think whatever vision that EDC had, he's definitely going to like plan B or C with it for future. I think the immediate core obviously was set, and this is what he envisioned. But going forward, he's definitely going to have to alter whatever plans he had for the DB room. For sure,
that's a good point. But they will get those guys back at some point in 26. They'll be back. I'm not sure they're both going to be back for the start of the season. I hope so. But one of them had a more serious, I guess it was Kone, had the more serious ACL/MCL injury. And he's the faster one to start with. So, yeah, they're going to have to be figuring out what they do with that. All right. Let's move to safety and talk about those guys. Unless we've missed a corner. Have we missed anybody in the corner?
Keon Martin.
Okay, talk about Keon Martin.
So I haven't seen a ton of film of him at Chattanooga. Sorry, that's Ruben Lobby. Where did Keon Martin go?
I should know that. Hold on, let me get my roster out. 1 sec.
I'll give him a solid 4 as well. I like the way he's able to turn his hips and run with people, and obviously he's able to play the slot. So coming off the edge and going forward, he's showing 2 plays of going forward that lets you know he understands the game. That's just, those are the type of plays that I gush over when you can take the play into your own hands. Like when I always ask people like, who's going to make a play? Like that showed me he could make a play.
Mhm.
Likely Isaiah Likely the same way. It's like certain guys on the team that's just like they're just ball players. He's a ball. I can see that he's going to be a ball hawk type guy where if the ball's in his vicinity, he's locating it and he's catching it and taking it the other way. That's what we need. Marcus Peters, maybe Alexander in the playoffs. So someone has to do that for us. And I think maybe
Okay.
Keon Martin can do that from the slot.
That's good. Martin will probably see some playing time this year because he could be the Ravens' number 5 corner in a way because they can solve all problems with the versatility of Humphrey by moving him back to the outside. Or if Humphrey's the guy's hurt, it could certainly be Martin who's the first replacement in the slot for him. So most of the guys I think this is the right strategy for any organization to take. The much smaller size and shape pool are those long outside corners. They're very hard to find.
Yeah.
Guys who have speed, and they're like the guys that are much easier to find are the slot corners. And so if you fall short and you don't have the slot corner you need, you can go to the street and get a guy who's not too bad. You'll take a step down, but depending on, it'll be a big step down possibly later in the season, but it's not too bad. And if you lose an outside guy, that can be disastrous to your team. You can all of a sudden have an enormous vulnerability that other teams will try and match up against and beat regularly.
Yeah, we'll get to the safety, but I feel like losing Ardarius is nice to see Keon and
Mm-hmm.
Starks and Ruben Lowry. It's nice that we have that insurance behind Humphrey. To the fact that even if he is healthy, to you said Awuzie is down or Awuzie and Alexander is down, you can move Humphrey and Nate Wiggins outside and feel comfortable with some type of rotation of Lowry and uh, Keon Martin and Starks and Hamilton. I like that as our that overhang or I'm sorry, slot cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice depth piece, and just to see him affect the game back to back weeks on impact. Those are impact plays. So I believe those impact plays are happening in between between his ears.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the safety group, and
Sure.
we'll start with Kyle Hamilton, and obviously a lot of what safeties do is not staying in phase with a player, though it can happen certainly in Hamilton's case when he's covering a tight end in the slot or somebody from there. But most of what he does is coming downhill or
Mhm.
going at an angle backwards such that he has good spacing with that outside receiver, particularly when the Ravens are playing half field.
Yeah, his range is elite. Um, he's really smart. He plays the ball really well. Um, I I don't have an issue with him. I'm going to give him a 5 as far as locating the ball, understanding route concepts, understanding where it's going, his ability to catch the ball outside of that Browns game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give him a 5. Now it's just time. He got his contract. It's just time to take that leap. I think as far as impacting the ball, and I know he comes downhill a lot. I know he's in those. He's filling run gaps and he's great at the run stops and coming off the edge to sack QBs. But I would like to see him, take the ball away a little more. Just put the production together. I think that's what his dad was saying when he was speaking about him. Like, it's time to put it all together and have a season that's undeniable as far as the back end with everything you do on the inside. So I would give him a 5, and just want to see him make those plays this year.
All right. I for the same reasons, I got to give him a 4, but I'm happy with how things look. I'm very happy with the contract. Extremely happy with the extension for Hamilton. Probably might be my favorite Raven. He's certainly
Hmm.
up there, but he certainly is a player who does a lot of things very well. Um, let's move over to the other safety position, Malachi Starks, a guy we don't know all that much about. He's obviously been in the national spotlight in Georgia. He's also been beaten a lot at Georgia, particularly when he's played slot, but also even when he's played on the back end. Things to say about Starks.
Just based off of, like you said, those split safety looks that we may start incorporating more of. He has the range to make it happen, and he can catch the ball. He can, if it seems like even that seam route that he, met I think it was that a tight end or a receiver up the seam. Um, just to see him be able to put his body in that position, that he could have hurt himself right there, and to see him understand he needed to get to that point, and he actually mentioned those points, so he can get to a point the same way Kyle Hamilton does, and make a play on the receiver or the ball. So based off of his interception production, he's coming in as the free safety, but safeties are interchangeable. I'm going to give him a solid 4 just based off his college production of, being a true deep safety. I think that's what you know he projects as a true deep post
Yeah.
safety, and being able to, like you mentioned, like get to the points where he can interact with the those boundary receivers, and that's what we're going to see a lot of that with Chase and Barrow on
Mhm.
those type of 25-yard outside the number throws where you have to you want to get someone over there over the top that can restrict those guys. So I think he can get to the point, and based off the film, he can be an Xavier McKinney type where he's gonna go up and attack the ball.
That's a very high bar, of course. Xavier McKinney. Xavier McKinney, matter of public record, folks. If you want to go back, he's the guy I wanted instead of Patrick Queen at number
Right?
28. Yeah. And I screamed for it. I was so unhappy. This thing is still out there, Dolph. If you want to ever go look at it, look at Filmstudy 2000, whatever it is, 2020, I guess it is, draft round 1. And it's all out there. I'm so upset about it. And the guys there are all kinds of people asking questions. Is he going to be all right? All this stuff. And I took a lot of crap from it, from the Ravens. I was on the lounge. I didn't like it, at that time. And I said so. It's just, I've
It
taken
was a
so much
Bama
crap for it
kid.
since. What's this?
It was a Bama kid. Like you took the LSU kid over the Bama kid.
Yeah.
That hurt my feelings. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted
Xavier's.
Marcus Williams so bad. I mean, we need we to an extent. I think you agree, Ken. Like we still haven't failed. And we had Earl Thomas, but I think Eric Weddle is a better example of someone that we like. As far as like what a Raven should be, but you know, hopefully we have that guy that can just play a true free safety and let
Yeah.
Kyle be his like the star position.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, with you entirely. But I'll tell you what, if they'd gotten McKinney in 2020, because I think they already kind of knew that they were going to have to replace Earl Thomas maybe by then.
right.
Although it hadn't happened, it didn't happen till camp in 2020, right? But if they had gotten McKinney in 2020, then they wouldn't have signed Marcus Williams.
Right.
So a whole bunch of dominoes would have gone in the right direction if they had gotten Xavier McKinney, and then they could have not had kind of some of the difficult Patrick Queen years as well. They might have found another solution for that made more sense.
It
So
reminds me of with Roquan, and they shuffled through a few players after Daryl Smith.
yep.
And then they say, well, let's just lock it down. And I think that's what they try to do with Marcus Williams. They just want to say, let's lock down the spine of our defense. And I think this is the attempt that will pay off with Starks, hopefully.
All right. How about, I think, Ruben Lowry we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, Ruben Lowry.
05.
I want to shout out. I forgot what channel I was watching. I think it might have been Sip to Tally. He had a
Okay.
breakdown on Ruben Lowry at Chattanooga State, and the whole film session was just basically, I know what you're doing, and he's athletic enough to get there. You know what I mentioned about this guy, and I'm a fan of him because they say he's undersized, but if you look at him, his frame is built where I think he can withstand an NFL season. Like he's
Yeah.
built pretty thick down low, and he just looks like he's an NFL player. He knows where he's going. But there was that film session was a pick six, the right side, the offensive right sideline, and he took that to the house, and it's a lot like Keon Martin's interception, where you're reading the coverage, and then you saw what he did in the end zone a few weeks ago, and that was all hands. I was like extended from away from his body. The ball, it looked like Ed Reed, honestly, like just the
Yeah.
style points. It wasn't just like I'm going to make it look difficult. It was style points on that interception where it's like, you check the box. You obviously can play the ball and go catch it and bring it down. So yeah, I'm going to give him a solid 4 as well. I'm glad. I appreciate you having me on, Ken, because I feel like the Ravens added maybe 4 guys that's much better than what we've had in the past. Whatever level of the depth chart they are, that the trait alone exist in them. And like I said from the beginning, I don't believe that trait is always taught. Sometimes it's just there. And I think we added Reuben Lowry, Keon Martin, Malachi Starks, and even just say his name, Jay Higgins. Like those are guys that just seems like between the ears they get concepts and how to impact the game.
Right. And Jay Higgins that's a fair one because he plays a hell of a lot faster than 482.
Yeah.
He is a very quick to the ball, kind of quick to react player. Inside linebacker to a lesser degree, probably than free safety, is an instincts position too. You don't need that great speed. It helps to be a great sideline to sideline guy, but you don't absolutely need it. If you know how to get to the hole, you're going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah, a solid 4 for the guy. I like his eyes to be able to move forward. And then we saw, like I said, the deep throw. It was an overthrow, but he had to go make the play, and he did.
One thing about this is a concerns episode, and you've given out a lot of 4s and 5s during this episode, but that's okay. I am more optimistic about it to this year, but turnovers had been a big problem in the past, and takeaways rather, and getting them in the postseason, obviously very important. Kane is a guy I don't have a lot of faith in to make plays on the football on the back end, but where would you rate him?
Yeah, I'm gonna give Kane a 2. I think it's pretty obvious, like where his skill set is. He's around the line of scrimmage. He's a thumper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we I think that's what is his, and that's part of the concern of all these guys. Like which guys will put those traits to use, and Marlon finally cleaned it up, and I think some of these guys you just have to improve on it. Tony Jefferson wasn't a great guy as far as ball skills. He would
That's
he
right.
would prefer to strike you than to take the ball away.
Yeah.
So I think Kane is more in that vein where he prefers to spare you if you want to decide to overextend for a ball versus like I'll meet you at the catch point. So I'll give him a 2 for that. As far as like that's fine. I don't expect that of him. He's there to be the enforcer. So
You want your dime back to be a guy who can do both, who can certainly find the football in the air and play that short zone,
yeah.
come downhill, rush the passer if needed, do the run stopping if it's needed. Actually, usually run stopping for a dime back involves running down the quarterback more than anything else. It doesn't usually involve running down a running back. But does Kane make a good time candidate for you, or does he have too many other deficiencies such that you'd rather see maybe Lowry on the back end and Hamilton up at a dime spot if they decide to go that way and not have a weak side linebacker on the field on third down?
I think Kane will start off as safety 3, but I don't think it'll be long before Reuben Lowry is getting as many snaps or more than Kane. I think Kane will be moved more to special teams, and I think Reuben Lowry will end up being this third safety at this point, and in the on the depth chart.
Okay, well, it'll be exciting to see.
What do you
Well, I'll
think?
tell you what.
Think so?
Yeah, I do think so. I think it makes more sense for Kane to play closer to the line of scrimmage. I will say this: throughout OTAs and camp, Kane did separate himself from Braid in terms of value, and then Lowry came on and had a very fine preseason as well. But he got beat some. I mean, Kane did too, in terms of getting beat on some plays and making other plays. It's the nature of camp is that you have a lot of non-aggressiveness on the ball and the receiver because you don't want to hurt your own guys. So they don't try and go up and have as many contested plays as you might otherwise, expect, and as will happen during the regular season. But that said, I think that Lowry is probably the better ball skills guy of the two. I think that's pretty clear. Yeah. All right, Dolph, been great talking to you. Really appreciate you coming on. Can you tell folks where they can talk football with you if they want online on Twitter?
Yeah, sure. Like we mentioned in the beginning, I'm usually on X pretty much daily. I'm Ravens enthusiastic. I just love everything about the team. So you can find me there as ZZ Godspeed. I follow you back. I usually follow back. I think the people that I follow are really great follows as well. So a lot of retweeting of smart people. It's like Jason from Huddle Up Film say, football is a family. I feel like it's a lot of family. So a lot of people in there that respect their opinions. So yeah, it's a great time. Sometimes it gets toxic over there on Twitter or X, but we all want the same thing, which is to give Lamar a short field every now and then in the playoffs.
All right. Well, you mentioned Jason. He's outstanding, big friend of the show, and I have the utmost respect for Coach Evans as well. He's been on the show a number of times in the past. We haven't had him on recently, and he's very busy with his own channel now at this point. But a great guest and great mind in terms of talking football. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on a concerns podcast, this is really kind of the end of the line. Got to hit me up with as soon as possible if I'm going to get you on before the start of the regular season. Otherwise, if you have a film study short idea, hit me up for that. Again, DM's always open on Twitter. Thanks for all the support you've given the show. If I can ask you to do one thing, it's like and subscribe on YouTube. And I'll ask you to do a second too, is pass the show along to a friend. Randolph, thanks a lot for coming on again.
Yes, sir. Take care. Thank you.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.